Hope, an art journal page by Karen Burchill. Part of the Creative Artist Collaboration, #ThinkPinkArt. Learn how to create a background with acrylic paints, use modeling paste with a stencil with acrylic paint, use a fine tip applicator to line objects, and how to use the Stabilo all pencil to shade. As usual, I apply a coat of gesso. This page has been kind of beaten up and marked, so I do put a little more gesso on some of the areas just to cover up some of the dark marks. Right here I'm applying Liquitex modeling paste. This is a flexible modeling paste through a Crafter's Workshop stencil. With the palette knife, I am kind of cleaning up some of the areas, and I'm just putting it. I'm not using the whole stencil. I'm putting bits and pieces of it here and there. I want to add some texture and some dimension, and I want to be able to build some interest in the background. After applying, you need to use your heat tool till dry. So I'm going to use mostly my Liquitex Basics, and I'm bringing out an assortment of color. At this point, I really don't know what I'm going for. I start by applying Naples Yellow Hue, followed by Bright Aqua Green, and some Phthalo Green, all Liquitex Basics. This is really one of my first attempts at applying the acrylic paint straight onto the paint. Tried to put a little bit darker blue. This is the ultramarine blue. Not exactly sure what colors I'm going with. I'm just kind of building up interest, and with the modeling paste there, I'm getting it in the ridges and getting some darker areas and some lighter areas. And I'm just building it up, playing with the colors till I get what I like. I'm removing some of the acrylic paint with the baby white, especially on the high parts that are lifted up with the modeling paste. When I think I have it where I like it, I am going to heat dry it a little bit to set this paint before I add more layers. With acrylic paint, you can add, once you dry, you can add more color on top of other colors, and it won't blend once it's dry. So if you like it, leave it, dry it, then apply more layers. Adding a little bit more yellow to the middle, and different parts. I'm liking how it's catching in the ridges of the modeling paste. Just building up layers of color, putting a little bit more ultramarine blue here and there. Right now I'm adding some more of the bright aqua green. At some point here I use Artist Loft acrylic paint in a metallic cobalt blue just to add that little bit of shimmer. I think that's what's in my hand right now. And it's just building up, especially on those higher points. So right here, I am adding a couple shades of magenta paint to this. Now, something I learned by playing with my paints, if you put the pink paint on top of any aqua or teal color, you do get shades of purple as well. And that's an effect I really, really like. So I'm wanting it to blend. I don't really want the pink to show there. I want kind of a lot of the purple to show up. So I cut out a flower petal, and my plan was to use my jelly prints. But in looking at the jelly prints in the background I created, there wasn't a real match. So I just cut it out of paper a little bit heavier than regular Xerox paper. So I have two sizes of petals. And the larger ones, I'm painting a deep violet with my Liquitex Basics. And then applying a layer of the lighter pink in a medium magenta, just to kind of give that mottled look. I don't want it to look too exact. Drawing it with the heat tool before I decide to add any other colors. I do plan on adding another color to this at a later time, and I'm just seeing how it looks on the background, and I'm happy with it for now. So on the smaller petals, I am applying the bright aqua green. And yes, it looks quite bright, and at this stage, if I was watching this video, I'd wonder, what is she doing? And I guess you have to wait to find out. But I do have a plan. Now I'm using my color wheel, and it shows that the teal along with the deep violet are analogous colors. And if you have those 5 colors on the top of the color wheel, they said they will go together. So I'm looking at my jelly prints, and I'm trying to pick out a center that I feel may work well with my flower. So I'm pulling out some darks, some yellows, anything I think might work. And just cutting a few samples just to try to see which one works out. This was my first choice, and even though I tried cutting out a couple more, I end up going back to my first choice. I like how the yellow and the center there kind of goes along with the yellow that I painted kind of in the middle of the paper. So now I'm ready to apply the next color. So what I'm doing is basically adding the color, the opposite color, to the top with a baby wipe. So on top of the deep violet, I'm putting the bright aqua green, and on top of the bright aqua green, you'll see me putting the deep violet. And I'm kind of going up and down, trying to get some texture, building in texture there. Even though I know that at this point in time, I am not going to leave it at that stage. You can see the texture there. But I want some interest. And as we find out in art journaling, sometimes it's those little details that really kick things up. So I'm just putting a couple layers of it on all of them. And so right now, they don't look so stark and so, oh my gosh, what is she doing? But I'm not done. With my Artist Loft Metallic Cobalt Blue, I'm applying through some of my stencils. And I like how I get dark and light. I am using a makeup sponge, and with just a very little bit of paint on the sponge. So I decide that halfway through I'm going to switch to a different stencil, And if you've watched any of my videos, you will recognize this swirl stencil. It is one of my favorites. It's showing its age, and I will be going out to buy a new one to replace this one. It works for so many projects. It is a plaid or folk art stencil, and very inexpensive at that. So I'm using a little bit of white, thinned white acrylic paint and some Martha Stewart pearlized paint to stencil on a pattern onto the bluer petals. I just felt my background and everything was getting a little dark, so when it's too dark and you want to lighten it up, adding a pop of white will do that. Thinking I could cut corners without moving it, but no. And again, some places are darker white than others. So a quick dry. So I'm using my template and I'm just putting where the petals will go, and I'm going to be applying them with my golden matte medium. So I'm just arranging, and these pinker petals have two different patterns on them, so I am alternating between two of them. And I'm putting the matte medium both underneath and on top of what I'm trying to adhere. The advantage of putting the matte medium on top of everything is also at a later stage when you see me make a mess with acrylic paint. It can be very easily wiped off and you can start again. So now I'm putting in the smaller petals. Using the matte medium as well. Making sure everything is adhered and then drawing with the heat tool. So there is my jelly printed center, which has a bit of the blue and a bit of the pink in the jelly print. So it kind of matches everything else. So I picked a font from my computer. Now this is one of those free fonts that I downloaded just by Googling free fonts. And I cut out the letters rather big. And I like the idea of the white. I think that white lightens up the page a little bit. So I'm just going to, once I have the position here, adhere this in the same way that I did the petals on the flower, both underneath and on top. My laser printer is running out of ink, so you can see that the E is very faded. But I will be darkening up the letters with thinned acrylic black paint momentarily. So now I'm going to use a fine liner bottle. It's a tiny squeeze bottle. Now there you can see I made a mistake, and because it has matte medium on it, I'm able to clean it up and go around. So this bottle has been filled with thinned black acrylic paint, and it has a metal tip on the little bottle, and I got 3 sizes of tips with this that I can put on to do line work. So this is really the first time that I've done it with this bottle. I did buy some from the dollar store, and lo and behold, I actually had this in my stash. And I find that it allots me the ability to have more control. So I'm liking how the thin black line is adding some separation between the background and the flower. So I'm drawing that, and now with my liner brush I am going to darken up my letters because I really want it to be black on white. Now you can darken up the letters using a Pitt pen or a gel pen or anything else. I just find, as you've seen in other videos of mine, that I can work a lot faster with my liner brush. And you thin the acrylic paint to the consistency of cream. And you do have to take care to clean the liner brush after, every once in a while. It gets clogged out, and if you don't want to buy a lot of liner brushes, that's a good preventative thing to do. So I'm just painting around. Now this font has those white dots on it, which I'm going to be filling with paint that matches my page. I'm just filling in. And I wish this line work would be as quick and efficient as this 4 times speeded up video makes it look like. But you have to realize this whole video in time, it's basically a 20-minute video that I'm uploading. It took 5 times that length of time to do all the steps. So I'm using the metallic cobalt blue paint, and I'm using my stylus, and I'm just getting a lot of paint on there and filling in those holes with the metallic paint. Again, I have the metallic paint on some of the petals, and it is also in parts of the background, and so this makes the whole page very cohesive. At this point, I get out my Stabilo All pencil and I start lining and then using my brush to activate the Stabilo All pencil. And while I like the dimension that this adds, I'm finding that it's not quite spreading out and giving me the shading effect that I want. So now I'm going in with my Stabilo pencil and I'm outlining it, and then I'm just getting my fingers just damp from a baby wipe or just dipping it into the water and just kind of rubbing it, and I'm getting a look that I like a lot more. So I'm just adding more and more shading till I feel that I've added the depth that I want. So I'm going to go all around all the petals, all the letters in the word hope, just building up layers as I go. I find this step really adds to the finished product. So now I'm getting a little bit of the acrylic paint, and using the Ranger blending tool, I am just adding a little bit of shading around the edges. Now, I could have done this earlier on, and I could have done it to all the petal pieces and the letters before I glued them down. And that would be something that I would do different if I was doing this one again, just to add that little bit of dimension. I think that would have added something to it. Signing my name with a gold gel pen. And here is the finished product. Hope for the cure to breast cancer, Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my videos. Subscribe so you won't miss any of the future ones coming up. Thank you.